Welcome, Carlos. We look forward to hearing about biotransformation. So over to you.
Hi everyone. I hope everyone can hear me well. Brett has kindly said he'll be moderating. I see that actually. So if there's any questions, yeah, just please shoot them through as we go through the topics. And hope everyone can hear me well as well.
Sorry,
Um,
you are sharing the wrong screen, Carlos. You're
all
sharing
right,
the
I am.
yeah,
What
sorry.
can you see?
The PowerPoint guidance screen,
Yeah,
so not the one with the slide, the other
we haven't
one.
got the full screen, full size, Carlos. So if you could share we've got the presenter view.
Can you see that?
Yeah,
Does that work better? Let me click on slide.
Yeah,
perfect.
now it's perfect.
Perfect.
All right, now I can't see my notes. All right, let's do it without the notes. Let's see what happens. It'll be a good test. But you can see the screen and yeah, that's um the idea of this session, I suppose, is to talk with everyone what by sorry? The idea of this section is to outline what biotransformation is, talk a little bit about this different sources of hop aromatics, which, interestingly enough, are not only coming from hops, the different kinds of molecules involved. Fear not, none of my 144 slides will go too deep into the chemistry. No, jokes. It's only 40 slides, not more than that. And although I'll name the compounds. At the end of the presentation, there'll be a complete list with for resources for whoever wants to dig deeper into the matter, and for whoever wants to learn more about it. There'll be also my contact details, so feel free to just reach out if there's any follow-up questions, or as I said, if you want to dig deeper. At the end, we'll have a nice little summary, which, to be completely honest, I would have loved to have this when I was brewing myself. I was brewing up until about 2.5 years ago. Oh, it's gonna coming up to 3 years now, actually. Um, where I did have a stint as a winemaker in my previous work life, and then I worked as a brewer as well. I can tell you, winemakers do know a whole lot more than brewers about biotransformation. It's an exciting topic and has been in wine for over 20 years. And in brewing, I believe it's coming behind. It's going a bit slower, but as equally as exciting. And like I said, there'll be a nice little summary at the end with some very cool resources that I would have loved to have when I was brewing. A nice step by step for the home brewers amongst you, a nice little step by step on how to get the most out of the hops, but also all the other ingredients where you can have nice precursors for these beautiful hop aromatics. So yeah, what is biotransformation and why should you care about this? In essence, it's any chemical modification done by a living organism or a component of that organism. It can be an enzyme, it can be a cofactor, it can be anything that is part of this living organism. And this is something that isn't used solely in the food industry. It's something that many, I want to say, the wider industry, be it the pharma industry, be it making all of those um, antibiotics and other drugs that we use not on a daily basis, um, but also cleaning agents. industry, you name it, they'll all be making use of this ability of microorganisms to biotransform chemical molecules, sometimes to create a new product, sometimes to give them more intensity, sometimes to change the way these compounds act and the way these compounds are active. We'll be talking specifically about yeast and yeast components and obviously how they impact in and around beers for those beautiful hop aromatics applied to IPAs, but not only IPAs, I suppose. I did see when was this? I think really just a couple of weeks ago, someone speaking about a smash beer challenge where they were supposed to use a neutral ale yeast, and they decided to use a yeast in combination with the right hop varietals to get these biotransformation products in there. So yeah, there can be various ways of getting that out into your those molecules out into your beer. Not necessarily for IPAs. I believe this was for something like a dry hop lager or a pilsner. Just three main fractions I want to say of hop aromatics, if you want. The biggest fraction is, as you can see here, and the most talked about hydrocarbon fraction, with a relatively high sensory threshold. I say relatively high because even though it's very low, if you look at the other fractions, the smaller the molecules get, the smaller the sensory threshold is. The oxygenated fraction, we'll talk about these in first step in the talk, can be up to 50% on hop varietal, and the sulfur fraction is as little as 1 or even lower, less than 1%, and they have a very low sensory threshold, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We'll get into that in more detail in a few slides. So we'll be, like I said, more or less focusing on thiols and terpenes. We'll mention a few other molecules of interest. Don't get too lost on these chemical names here, but yeah, let's dig into it. First up, terpenes. These are aromatic hydrocarbons, which give there's a wide variety of aromas that can come from these terpenes, be it like those green or piney notes. It can be citrus, but it can be also floral notes. Like I mentioned at the beginning, these are not necessarily only of interest for brewing, but for a whole lot of other industries. We'll be specifically about the oxygenated fraction of these compounds. These can be in free and bound form. And why is this interesting? And I think this is I guess one of the first really important concepts here. We'll be talking a whole lot about precursors because these are usually bound to a sugar molecule, and the yeast wants that sugar molecule. The left side of the screen here. This is what the yeast actually wants, and there'll be what we call a hydrolysis, where this chemical bond is cut, which is mediated by an enzyme that the yeast can express, which will free up this bound terpene, and this bound terpene will now be free. And by becoming free, which is why it's something we can smell and actually make have a sensory impression in our beer. So this ability of the yeast to chelate or to grab sugars from everywhere other than just the sugars from the malt in the wort is what we make use of to make our beer just more aromatic. So this whole thing here, if you want, is non-aromatic when it's sugar. It is active when it's free. They can be sometimes added in the free form. So there's a portion of these that are already free in the hops, but most typically they'll be bound to either a sugar or a cofactor or different molecules of interest for the yeast. There's a whole lot of pathways here. We're not going to go into each one of these into the. You have a reference here, which means at the end of the presentation, you have a whole literature list, and you can actually dig these up and look into more detail what happens here. So there's just to simplify, there's one molecular granule, and you can actually through different pathways make way to a whole set of different molecules that will have distinct and very different aromas and in different magnitudes as well. Types of this transformation, this biotransformation that the yeast can do. One is the creation of something that is completely new, as much as liberating a bound form of a non-aroma active precursor to an aroma active free version of that molecule. Interestingly enough, and this is something that we'll get back to in a few slides, this happened inside the cell. Here is the case of granule being reduced to beta-citronellol, which is a very interesting thing that happens. So this is something, so when we talk about, I'm going to take a step back here, when we talk about beta-citronellol being present in the beer, and I will talk about beta-citronellol in more detail later on, we're talking about something that is essentially only happened by biotransformation. So this is a very good marker to measure the biotransformation activity of any given yeast. It can also happen outside of the cell walls of the yeast. Here we can see that the enzyme beta-glycosidase is actually expressed and it goes through to the outside of the yeast cell. So this reaction happens outside of the cell, where the sugar will actually be transported through the membrane back into the cell, into the yeast cell. How we're looking for questions so far, Brett?
Okay, right. Let me start from the top. Can you hear me okay, Carlos? Yeah,
Can you hear
okay.
well?
Yeah, hello. We are a mid brew day here, so no camera microphone. Sorry. Just somebody telling me about it. They're online. I was reading it out. No questions yet.
All right, good.
No, no.
Good to hear that someone's brewing. Maybe we'll get to that to the practical tips fast enough so that they can maybe even make use of it straight away. Who knows?
Hold the brew. Okay.
Let's keep going with this. So yeah, two types of this biotransformation, creation of something completely different, or the freeing up of something that was bound. Lost on this busy slide. What I want to explain here, just in particular, this biotransformation can actually be very, very determining of how the aromatics of your beer will be with just very little ingredients. So in this particular study here, you can see in this particular study, it was measured, the creation of beta-citronellol was measured. And you can see it here in the different concentrations. in the different stages of production. So from wort all the way through beer, you can see that the different varietals would yield different amounts of beta-citronellol. Like I said at the beginning, there wouldn't be any at the beginning of before the fermentation in the wort, because this is something that the yeast produces. But you can see here the red dotted line. This is the sensory threshold. As early as 3 days of fermentation, we can see that this is above the sensory threshold already, giving way to aromas of citrus by simply adding this relatively little, a small addition of T90 pellets on the hot side. So this is 0.8 gram per liter, the whirlpool addition of these different varietals that will already give you an interesting or a significant amount of beta-citronellol in your beer. So you can see that this little I guess thing we call biotransformation, even with small steps, can already be quite significant. Another very important group in the biotransformation group of molecules are the diols. This is the fraction, which is a very, very small fraction of the I guess molecules that are part of this. And you can see that the sensory threshold here is actually quite low, so you don't need a lot to have a big effect. And this is, like I said at the beginning, not necessarily a bad. Again, here we can find thiols in both free and bound form in hop. They exist in same as the bound terpenes. They can be inactive bound precursors, which is the vast majority of the thiol precursors. And they can actually, a few of them can already have free thiol. One, I've mentioned this before, low conversion rates are actually a good thing. So you don't actually need a lot of this to have a big effect. Very intense. The same molecules can sometimes be, and we'll look at that in detail later on. The same molecule can be a tropical fruit, or a very similar version of it can be loud enough and so intense that it'll become a little garlicky or a little oniony. And I'm pretty sure that the home brewers amongst you have had this in the past, when adding too much of a certain I don't know, push too much hate on any specific varietal here, but the culprit, the usual suspects here that we're talking about, that can be very loud and can easily be too much of it. Back in my winemaking days, this is a quick anecdote. Actually, we used to make what we used to call thiol bombs, where we wanted to have a very intensely very intense expression, to have a, and this is something that maybe is not out of place in brewing. When you have the space for it, we had these thiol bombs that then we would blend back in small portions to actually give a little bit of that thiol aroma into a larger volume that wasn't as loud or as intense. Which is why I'm saying that these low conversion rates and the 1% conversion are actually a good thing here.
Got a couple of questions, Carlos.
Yep.
Do bound thiols change through fermentation by yeast, or is it only free thiols that are affected by yeast through fermentation? My best success has been to do a big whirlpool, then finish fermentation, cold crash, and dry hop at cooler temperatures. Every time I've tried to dry hop during fermentation, I've had hop burn. This is from Jonathan Davis. And do precursors like phantasm powder allow for bound thiol, so release earlier?
Right. So there's like questions making. Let's go through those. Yes, styles will also change during fermentation. Maybe not as much and in not as many pathways as terpenes, but an existing and a free form of a thiol will change through fermentation just as much as terpenes will. Oh, actually, that's wrong. They will change, maybe not as much, just in different ways. Phantasm itself, never got to use Phantasm myself, but I did work a lot with Sauvignon Blanc, which is what Phantasm actually is. That's, I believe, precursors from the skin of Sauvignon Blanc. And yes, that's exactly how it's supposed to work. So you would have a bound form of thiol that gets freed up during fermentation. And yeah, I mean, every brewery setup is different. So having a process that really works for you is not something that I'm recommending to step away from it and completely change things. Every process needs to be adapted to its own setup. And if you're getting hop burn into your beer with the same rates, maybe a hint there would be to adjust the rates that you're using when you're looking for biotransformation. And this is something that goes hand in hand with, I guess, a work philosophy that I always was a friend of. I've always been a friend of a multivariate way of looking at things, and not just changing one thing at a time, but changing many things in an informed way, of course, just not blindly guessing. You get to a better product. So if you're changing the moment or the timing when adding the hops, changing the rate as well as the variety, and this will become very evident, and I think in a few slides, why this is important, should go hand in hand. So I would suggest looking at rates just as much as timing.
Thanks, Carlos. One comment about your audio is a little bit breaking up, and suggestion: could you maybe turn your camera off to maximize the bandwidth so it's all to the microphone, because obviously that might help. Next question from Jonas Madsen: how big an effect does an 70 to 75 rather than an 80 degrees Celsius whirlpool have? The last two IPAs I've done, I've gone down to 72-ish degrees rather than 80. And at least in my opinion, I've got a better taste.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. I would definitely say that yeah, you'll have more survivables than 80 degrees. So yeah, for sure. And again, this is every brewery setup is different. So gotta keep playing with it and finding out what works for you in your setup.
Okay, one more question from Christopher Tuelman. How effective is pre-fermentation dry hopping in pushing for those biotransformation flavors?
Very, very. We definitely recommend doing that. And again, in a few slides time, we'll get into that topic. So looks like people want to talk about less the basics. So let's skip through these and get to the slides that answer those or some of these questions. All right, so skip through this. Again, this could making a large fraction here. So you'll see the orange and the green. These are actually bound to cysteine and glutathione cofactors. This is what you think you're adding when you're rubbing the hops, and this is what you're actually adding as free and aroma active thiol when you're adding it to the beer. So the potential of releasing from these cofactors during the fermentation is actually really, really big. I believe this. Oh, I missed the the citation here. It's a really nice paper that it's on the literature list. So I guess this is a good nugget of information here for doing and exploring here with biotransformation. There's a few challenges to releasing bound thiols, and I think part of this is understanding that it's a plethora of different factors that will come into effect here. One of those is your yeast assimilable nitrogen. So I think having too much nitrogen or assimilable nitrogen in your wort will be detrimental to your freeing up from the thiols. So this is one thing to watch. I'm not saying, but definitely watch how nitrogen is actually being added to your words. One, it's I think a bit of a balance and a bit of a juggling you got to do here. You want to keep your soldiers happy. You want to keep the yeast with good nutrition, but you don't want to have an excess of this nitrogenous material in the wort. I briefly mentioned this before. There's also here different kinds of I guess biotransformation for thiols. One can be the freeing up of non-volatile bound thiol into a volatile free version or form of the thiol. But there can be also the transformation. In this case, it's an esterification of a already aroma active thiol into a different thiol. So this is 3SH being through esterification changed into 3SHA, which will have a different activity. And I think this was Jonathan Davis' question. So this is something that it's one of the, I guess, more beautiful tools that you have, or more elegant that you have in brewing to give depth and more layers to your hop aromatics in your beer.
Next question from Dorian. How do you reduce nitrogen in the wort then, or make sure you limit it to good amounts, whatever good means?
Yeah, I didn't want to mean saying diminish your nitrogen amount. I'm just saying, and this is part of you can always send your word off for analysis, of course. But I believe this is a whole lot of trial and error and seeing what works best for you. I'm not saying take nitrogen out, just don't add too much. And again, this will be something that every setup is a little bit different, and I'm more than happy to give guidance on the sideline. Send me a message. You'll have my contact details at the end of the day, and we can look into this with a bit more detail and hopefully make some informed decisions. One compound or group of compounds is not one compound that often gets dismissed as maybe not as loud or as active, aroma active, are the lactones. These are very, very interesting compounds. They are created by yeast. They're created by conversion of fatty acids, and these fatty acids can be in your malt and in hops as much as in adjuncts like wheat and oats, and they can be actually very interesting. They can smell like peach and nectarines. They can smell like coconut. They can smell a little bit like vanilla. But what they do, it's like the salt on the meat. What they do is they give depth and layers to your hop aromatics. They complement your hop aromatics in a different way. So this is a group of molecules that I think can be very, very interesting. This little study here, and you have the citation here, and you can look into detail. The slide here shows really well what it actually does. So if you look at the base here, you can see the different values it has for the different sensory characteristics. If you look at lactose itself, there's already a big step up in these concentrations here for the different descriptors. And again, lactose and esters, lactose and terpenes, see that these lactones actually bring they have this synergistic effect with the, I guess, louder counterparts of aromatic molecules. So they can have very significant sensory impacts in combination with esters and terpenes. So step back onto your recipe creation, different protein fractions. One reason you would have wheat and oats in your malt, but also giving the yeast fatty acid as precursors for lactone formation as part of it.
I've
I
got a
think this
couple
is the
I've got a couple of questions, Carlos. From Jacob, can we add something that's not poisonous to catalyze the releasing of the thiols?
something that's not poisonous. I'm
To
not entirely sure what you
catalyze
mean
the
by that.
releasing of the thiols, yeah.
What I don't understand the question.
Okay, maybe Jacob, you could rephrase the question and add it again. Meanwhile, I'll ask a question from Artem. So, if I understand correctly, on your previous slide, you can also recommend adding hop oil, adding up hops before adding yeasts in the cold side, strictly before the fermentation.
Yes, absolutely. I can actually recommend adding hops as early as your mash. Maybe not for super obvious reasons, but what you want to do is you want to protect these fresh expressed styles in your finished product as much as possible. So one way is obviously having more precursors, which is adding hops very early in the process in at the right temperatures and at the right timing, of course. But also adding, and hops will have a lot of hops will be a way of adding tannic acid to your mash, which will enhance um, um, to your wort. And this is the key. You want to keep oxygen as far away from these styles as you can throughout the process. And I think that can start as early as you mash.
Okay, thank you. Carry on.
I think at the core of this whole presentation, and this is something that I hope everyone gets reads out and I'll obviously share it with the organizers, but just reads out and they come back with questions to us. We have this nice little summary with further resources and references at the end. When we speak about biotransformation and getting the best out of hops, we're actually speaking about a holistic approach to brewing, and what you want to do is want to make sure that you have a yeast strain that's capable of getting the most out of your hop varietals. And you want to choose hop varietals that do have bound thiols at the right time. You want to choose the right hop varietals and pair them with the correct yeast strain in order to get all these beautiful biotransformation products. Here a quick rundown on some of the most important molecules if you want. Granule can actually come in a free form with your hops, but there's also a bound can also be bound. It can be perceived as floral, flower-like, rose and rosewater-like. It has synergistic effects with other fruity compounds. So this is a good base, if you want, that can be converted or transformed into a series of other aroma active molecules. How to small in your beer? In, uh, it very be in whirlpool, lower temperatures than 100 degrees, obviously. You want these bound terpenes to survive in the work so that yeast strains that have the ability to express beta glucosidase, or you can add beta glucosidase. In this case, it's an enzyme preparation that has this enzyme readily available, makes it readily available into your work, so that you can actually have just a boost in the free version of, or in the free granule, or you can choose varietals that are high in free terpenes and use them late in the dry hopping.
Couple of questions.
Yep.
Okay, so I think possibly you're going to cover this at the end. Are there any books or guidelines you recommend for a home brewer that is an introduction to this topic?
This presentation. Jokes aside, absolutely. There's at the end of the presentation, I think there's a couple of very, very good resources. There'll be a QR code where you have a link to our best practices for biotransformation, and a nice summary table that we've compiled for home brewers and commercial brewers alike, that I believe is a good starting point to get into biotransformation. And obviously all the literature list with the works from the different educational facilities that are doing the science behind all this presentation.
Yeah, that was from Jon. Thank you, Jon. From Dorian, are these thiol precursors sensitive to boiling temperature? You mentioned adding hops at the Mars level, so these precursors will be there throughout the boiling process, including boiling.
Absolutely. So we're adding hops at the mash process, at the mash step, because of the tannic acid for its antioxidation activity. So it will, not for its thiol precursors.
And the next one from Jacob, when you are talking about synergetic effect, does looking at the number of myrcene, terpenes, and so on bring from the cellars, so we can get any outcomes as to what combinations of hops should be the right one to achieve synergy?
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't necessarily only look at it from that way. I much prefer, and in my own approach, I would say I would look at it from the end product perspective. Where do I want to get to, and how do I get there? And pair with, for example, this tool that we're presenting now, the varietals with the yeast strain that can actually make the most of it. But yes, absolutely. I mean, you want to look at as much information as you can access for each of your varietals, and use the information for your recipe creation, for sure.
And from Zeneb, I would like to ask two questions. One, what impact do the aromatic profiles of the hop have on the final beer flavor, foam, and stability qualities? And two, do the bound terpenes affect, do the bound terpenes affect during the wort boiling? I think he means, are they affected during the wort boiling?
Yes, they are affected. So you want to look at personally, I would recommend doing or this is the way we used to work during in my brewing time. The earliest hop addition I used to make was during whirlpool, and not before that, because I knew that it would be as little as possibly no survivable aromatic compounds or precursors of interest. So yeah, I would definitely not expect those to come through.
Okay.
And another question from Jonas. Short question with a possible follow-up. Will you talk about malt composition and mashing temperatures?
No, this talk is about biotransformation rather than IPA recipe creation. But that's something that I can definitely help with. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've used to do a whole lot of IPAs in my brewing life. So don't be shy and send me a message. You'll have my contact details at the end, and we can definitely talk about that. Yeah. But in this itself, it's about biotransformation specifically.
Okay. Do you want to carry on, Carlos? I'm just looking at the time here.
Yeah, I'm also being mindful of the time. We don't have a lot of slides left. So beta-citronol is, like I said, a very important biotransformation compound. It's of interest because if there's beta-citronol, it means most likely that there has been some yeast doing its biotransformation, which is why it's used as a marker to show what yeast can or cannot do. You want to choose a varietal that's high in free granule, or you want to have in combination with varietals that are high in bound granule that will be freed up during biotransformation and have a strain. In this case, Pomona is one that can definitely help maximize the terpene conversion to have a lot of this into your final beer. I had a couple slides here looking into Pomona, but I think we're not going to lose time of this because we're over time already. We can, however, touch that about that on the talk about that on the sidelines with over email and yeah, just a note. 3SH, formerly known as 3MH. It's the same thing. You may see it in older papers. 3MH. It can be free bounds from hops. Of course, it gets freed through biotransformation as well. Someone spoke about phantasm, and this is exactly the precursor that will be or phantasm has precursor that will be yielding exactly this in the final product. You don't need a lot of it in the beer to actually be active, and this is one of those loud I guess characters that you uh, like I said, to maximize this, you want to not only have to write hop varietals, you'll see here SAS as a maybe so intuitive early dry hop or whirlpool hops for your modern IPA, but high in bound style, but also the malt. So for your modern IPAs, having loading it up with pale malt is one way to get your bound style precursors amount higher in the word, and then you obviously want to these yeast strain that's high in beta lyase, which is the enzyme that will free up these bound thiols. And for the dry hopping, you want to obviously combine with a varietal that's higher in the free form of this style. One quick word here. Why are we saying that malt is a good source for purchase for the bound form of the style? There's a very nice paper, and have again at the end of the presentation the literature reference to a study that was done at OSU, Oregon State University, around this. 3SH, this is the esterification or the product of esterification from 3SH, the previous thiol, an even lower sensory threshold, which means this is even more active. And again, this ties back into an early question. This happens through biotransformation and give us some of those very nice tropical characters. but it can also become sweaty at higher concentrations. So this is that molecule that I was talking about. When we were making wines, we were making these style bombs. So yeah, can easily be too much. How to
Now that's
maximize?
an
Yeah.
interesting question from Kyle. Any thoughts about raw beers versus boiled beers when it comes to biotransformation?
Yes, absolutely. And this is something that I skimmed through a little bit too fast during the process considerations. I would keep raw, obviously something that's been done possibly for longer than the beer industry exists. But it's exciting that the homebrew community picked it up. I don't know, probably like 20 years ago before I started making beer, and it's coming back in a way. I would keep the boil as long as needed to kill your DMS precursors, um, and make sure that that's not a problem, and as short as you can, because you will want to make sure that anything that can resemble aldehydes or aldehyde precursors, be it through Maillard reactions or Strecker degradation, stay away from your wort. They will be in direct conflict with your thiols and with this carefully concocted IPA.
Thank you. And one more from Artem. Did you have some substitution for Pomona, but with the same biotransformation effects?
Unsubstitutable Pomona is unsubstitutable, I would say. But jokes aside, no, it's definitely something for brewers to discover and see what works best for them. But the case of Pomona, and I didn't talk about it in the slide. I think I skipped through it because we're running out of time, or we run over time. It's a hybrid yeast that has been selected and has gone through a whole lab evolution period to be adapted to actually express that beta glucosidase and be very, very high in that in the expression of or freeing up of these terpenes, and that's why it is so good at what it does. Back to 3SHA. So yeah, again, you want to have the right precursors, which one way of doing it is adding it early enough so that you have 3SH in your wort. Have a strain that can maximize the conversion of 3SH through esterification into 3SHA, and high in this freestyle, well, none that we know of. Here, I've shown this already. But yeah, one word about this. Again, the synergistic effect of lactones is not to be passed over. Here, I think this is quite a nice little tool that you can use on brew day, or maybe not on brew day when you're doing your recipe, choosing to help you choose varietals and that are highly to express different groups of molecules that you want to have in your end product and pair with the same here for ACE and lactones.
Carlos, were you losing you? Your audio is breaking up. It's been breaking up throughout. Is there anything else you want to say, or are we? Was that? I'm not sure if you finished or not. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. It just occasionally we completely lose you. It breaks up a bit. We've got
All right.
95% of it, but we're
All
that's
right. No, sorry, I wasn't aware of that. No, just really in summary, to maximize sparkles, I think this is key in the way we recommend approaching beer making. The ingredient selection goes way beyond what you like. It goes, I think, into choosing things you like and pair them with partners that can get the most out of these ingredients. It'll be way more than what you rub in your hops, that what you can out of hops, way more than what you can what you can smell when you rub the hops. I think. A lot of these molecules are very hard to retain in the beer. So keeping the oxygen out and looking at all the other factors that will make sure that your beer has the characters you want are just as interesting. We did send out a newsletter about 2 weeks ago with step-by-step approach for home brewers and commercial brewers alike on how to actually retain these hard fought for styles or free styles in your beer. And if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, I invite everyone to do so. There's a few good bits of information there that can hopefully help everyone to keep those. And just to finish off, here as I was promising at the beginning, this QR code, and I believe you will be, Brett, you will be sharing this presentation with everyone, I hope. If not, you have contact details here at the end. The reference I was talking about, yeah, here we go. These are my contact details. Make sure you write them down, and you can follow up with other questions anytime.
Thanks, Carlos. That was brilliant. Excellent. And yes, the webinar will be shared online on YouTube. Give it a few days. And Carlos, if there's any information you want to send me additionally, I can always attach it to the website. But thank you very much for your webinar. And there's one more thing to do, and that is to share my screen. If you want to stop sharing now, um, uh, Carlos, what I can do is just share my screen, and just bear with me a second. And it's just really to encourage people and remind them to, if you've enjoyed this webinar, please do support EBCU. Buy us a beer using the QR code below, and it would be much appreciated. And we look forward to seeing you at a future webinar. Many thanks, Carlos, and have a very good evening. Thank you very much for your workshop. It's been much appreciated and much enjoyed by the number of questions we received.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having us. And yeah, please drop me a line. More than keen to have a conversation on the sideline with everyone.
I'm sure that will happen. Thanks, Carlos. Cheerio, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Carlos.